Welcome to our explainer. Today we are breaking down a really critical safety standard, NFPA 664, and what you absolutely need to know to prevent a catastrophic wood dust explosion in your facility.
Okay, let's just get right to the point. If you're in any facility that processes wood, NFPA 664 isn't just some guideline you can glance at. It's a crucial framework. And honestly, it can literally mean the difference between a safe shift and a disaster.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the hidden danger of wood dust itself, then get into the science of how it can explode, and after that, we'll walk through the specific solutions that the NFPA 664 standard requires.
First up, let's talk about the core problem. It is so easy to underestimate the danger here, because we're just talking about dust, right? But the reality is, it takes a shockingly small amount of it to create a life-threatening situation.
So get this, according to NFPA 664, if you have a layer of what they call fugitive dust, the stuff that escapes and settles on beams and equipment, that's just 1/8 of an inch thick. We're talking about the width of a pen tip. That's all it takes to officially classify an area as having a deflagration hazard. Just 1/8 of an inch.
So how does that tiny, seemingly harmless layer of dust turn into something so incredibly dangerous? Well, this is where the science comes in. And it's all explained perfectly by something called the Explosion Pentagon. For an explosion to happen, you need 5 things to line up perfectly. It's like a perfect storm. You need the fuel, that's our wood dust. You need oxygen, which is, everywhere in the air. You need an ignition source, a spark, a hot motor, anything like that. Then that dust has to be dispersed into a cloud. And the final piece of the puzzle is confinement, like the walls of a building or the inside of a dust collector. Now that rapid burning is technically called a deflagration. It's basically a massive flame front moving super fast through that dust cloud. And when that happens inside a confined space, the pressure builds up almost instantly, and that's when you get a catastrophic, building-destroying explosion. So with a risk that immense, how do you even begin to manage it? Well, the National Fire Protection Association gives us the playbook. It's a multi-layered defense, all laid out in the core requirements of NFPA 664. Now, who does this apply to? This standard is aimed right at industrial and commercial facilities. Specifically, NFPA 664 kicks in if your woodworking operations take up more than 5,000 square feet, or if your dust collection system moves more than 1,500 cubic feet of air per minute. The standard is really smart about this. It breaks down the requirements into these key categories, and each one is specifically designed to knock out one or more elements of that explosion pentagon we talked about. From getting rid of the fuel with good housekeeping, to controlling ignition sources with the right electrical equipment. And this just shows you how detailed the standard gets. The engineering controls are super specific. For instance, if your dust collector is inside, you need things like high-efficiency filters and spark detection. But if it's outside, the rules are different. It needs to be a safe distance away and have explosion vents that point somewhere safe. Okay, now let's talk about what is, without a doubt, the most critical piece of NFPA 664. The Dust Hazard Analysis, or DHA. You really have to think of this as the foundation for your entire safety program. The standard basically forces every single plant manager and engineer to answer one very direct, very important question. Does your facility have a deflagration hazard? And here is the absolute kicker. This is the part you really need to hear. If you have not completed and documented a formal dust hazard analysis, then according to NFPA 664, the answer is yes. By definition, a hazard exists. This has huge implications for OSHA, for your insurance, for everything. So what is a DHA? It's a systematic review. It has to be led by a qualified person, and its job is to identify every potential dust hazard, evaluate your current safety measures, and figure out what else you need to do. And listen, this isn't a one-and-done thing. You have to review and update it at least every 5 years. Now, this isn't just about following some industry best practice. Being compliant is directly tied to regulatory enforcement, and the consequences for not doing so are really, really serious. So in the US, while OSHA doesn't have its own specific rule for combustible dust, they are all over this. They use something called the General Duty Clause, which basically says employers have to provide a workplace that's free from recognized hazards.
So you might be asking, what's a recognized hazard? Well, OSHA points directly to standards like NFPA 664. They use it as the benchmark for what a safe operation looks like.
So if you're not following the standard, OSHA can and will cite you for it.
Look, the stakes couldn't be higher. Following NFPA 664 is first and foremost about preventing fatalities, period. But it also keeps OSHA happy, protects you from massive legal liability, satisfies your insurance company, and, frankly, it's what keeps your business from literally going up in smoke.
All right, let's wrap this up with a clear, actionable plan. Here's what you need to do to make sure your facility is compliant and, most importantly, safe from these terrible events.
First, a quick heads up, the NFPA has recently bundled several of its dust standards into a new, bigger one called NFPA 660. But, and this is the important part, the core technical requirements for wood dust that we've been talking about today, all those principles from NFPA 664, they are still the foundational benchmark for the industry.
So here's your action plan. Step 1, the DHA. If you don't have one, you have to get one done. If you do, make sure it's up to date. Then, review and document your housekeeping program. Inspect your dust collection systems to make sure they're compliant, verify that all your explosion protection systems are in place and actually work, and finally, you have to train your employees on these hazards and your safety rules.
So, to bring it all home, it is absolutely essential to stop thinking of NFPA 664 as a bunch of technical rules. It's not a burden. It's what it truly is, a life-saving framework. It gives you the exact engineering and administrative controls you need to protect your people and your facility from the incredible destructive power of a wood dust explosion.
If you want more breakdowns of advanced safety standards like this one, and you're looking for professional compliance guidance, go ahead and subscribe to HSC Study to stay ahead of the curve in workplace safety.